Okay, so I believe before we got interrupted to acknowledge the dragon that you were about to say something, FB.
I always am. No, I can't shut up. No, what I was thinking is, with Prime 2, the middle bits are always kind of felt a little because Torvus Bog is kind of...
Yeah, hard agree.
But then you get to Sanctuary, and it's like, this is where we put all of the effort into all of the design for the entire thing and stuff like that.
It's not even that I think that Torvus Bog is in and of itself a bad design for an area. It's just that, wow, they got unlucky with the connotations of such an area. At that point in the story, at this point in the game, they make you go through a swamp.
Speaking of a swamp, I think we just drained the water. But yeah, like, it's... Because we were talking about Chaika being kind of crappy, but then you get to Quadraxis, and that fight is actually really, really awesome. It's got a ton of different phases, all with different ways to attack, and
it's kinetic and interactive and engaging, and like, holy shit, it's awesome. I wish Metroid Prime had a boss replay mode.
That boss is just extremely good. And so it's just funny to compare... It's just funny to compare those two bosses being, you know, same game, so different in terms of, you know, fun and engagement.
Wouldn't be surprised to find that there were like different internal teams working on each area.
Well, I mean, the history of Prime 2 is at least partially known. Don't forget that it was also, you know, done in 2 years instead. Actually, I don't even know if it was 2 or a year and a half.
2 years is a pretty good guess. Nintendo aren't the kind to rush this kind of thing, like, famously. But, you know, it seems to me that, like, if you're making a game like that, where you've just had an incredibly successful game and you've greenlit a sequel, and somebody's decided that you're going to go to 3 very tidily separated areas, that, like, you would be in a very good position as a director to make sure that everybody was approximately equally budgeted and everyone had approximately as much great engaging stuff in all their areas.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of puzzling that they didn't.
Can't get high enough here.
Yeah, so this is the main puzzle of this little area, is that we need to get some extra height to get up to that set of vines, but this train is not going to cut it.
What influences the lights? Why do they blink like that?
The lights tell you... So, the lights are connected to this little device up here. What it does is it tells you whether or not it's positioned in such a way that the platform will move back and forth. So, like, if the train was, like, halfway on, it won't move.
That's both sensible and helpful.
And OSHA compliant.
Right?
It's good. That they get a green check mark for that one.
Right, their rating has improved to 0.001% compliance.
Yep.
Hey, this place is a death trap, but, you know, some of your flashing hazard lights work.
I'm so glad that the electricity still works in the apocalypse.
I mean, think, if there wasn't power running through those sparking loose cables, these flashing hazard lights wouldn't be working, so it's a big puzzle whether that actually makes this area more or less safe on balance. Well, that's all I have here. This is not much of a puzzle.
No.
Replace the train with the bigger train. Yep.
Obtain larger train. Oh, this is the... Right, this was the flooded room from earlier.
It's that very recognizable configuration of Mario pipes halfway up the wall right through the detail. Recognize it anywhere. You see, this design incongruity is actually, like, genius game design.
You solved the puzzle and got a jingle.
Oh yeah, this game is that too.
It's just not as memorable as the Zelda one.
It really isn't. I mean, I think we talked about this in the Twilight Cathedral too, but like this game's music, just in general, is really, I don't want to say subpar, but
I don't even hear any music right now, and I've got the sound on.
This place doesn't seem to have a BGM, which is fine. Not everywhere needs a BGM.
I mean, for all the faults of the Water Temple, you have actually, like, nice Water Temple music.
BGM is just one, fortunately, very straightforward, well, I say straightforward, one conceptually straightforward way to give the player something nice to have in their ears while they're doing all this stuff. But you can do the same with an ambient soundscape if you want.
This game came out in the time period where I feel like a lot of AAA developers were... Oh, okay, new enemy. We're mostly focused in terms of like, hey, Call of Duty had frickin' Hans Zimmer orchestral score. We need orchestral scores and stuff like that. And the problem is, orchestral scores are nice, but I feel like a lot of the music in this time period didn't have much for melody.
Yeah, like yeah, there's an argument for having a soundtrack that's suitable for the purpose and is like good but isn't especially memorable. Like, there's plenty of games that like, okay, I thought that the music in this game was pretty good, even though most of it I would not be able to remember. I could not hum any bars, I could not name the composer off the top of my head. I would not recognize it if I heard it again.
But like, when did Bayonetta come out? Probably around the same time, right? So think about it.
yeah, Bayonetta was...
But that was a Platinum Games sound studio production, and
Well, yes, but I was just going to compare, like, this obviously is not as much of an action game as Bayonetta, but we are still, you know, there is some attack strings and combos and things like that here. We are 3D brawling some dudes. But
I don't think the Platinum sound team gets enough credit for the work they do on the budget they're on. You just give these guys no money, and this handful of people will just synthesize this 5-disc soundtrack full of like amazing themes and distinctive instrumentation and yes, hummable, catchy melodies and themes and leitmotifs and symbolism.
like, I would say, artists, if it doesn't like copyright problems you or something like that, take the Bayonetta standard battle music or whatever and just overlay it here and see what sort of difference it makes on like a combat scene or whatever. Because here I hear like no music. I heard, I think, some horns at one point and that was it. Like, there's just nothing to it.
You know, I've already done that, right?
I don't watch what I'm not in.
Okay, thank you. But no, yeah, I know I did that in the last dungeon. Actually, I think in the video I just posted, I overlaid the Devil May Cry 4 battle theme over it. And it's like, and yeah, like you can feel how it like totally changes the scene.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like Modern Warfare 2, you know, Hans Zimmer soundtrack and everything needs to have like music that's as memorable as Mario or something like that. Because I don't think it needs to. In that game, you know, you're going for a more realistic depiction of, you know, of war and gunplay and things like that. And I don't think you don't need, you know, memorable melodies for it. But this is still very much more of a game kind of game.
Music is very good for delineation. It's great for the mental space thing. It's like, it's how you know that you've gone out of the exploration thing and now you're in the combat phase and it's time to start tapping those combos.
Yeah, like even Zelda has, you know, every time you have a battle, you have battle music. And it doesn't matter what, well, except, this is really only a 3D Zelda thing. But it doesn't matter what 3D Zelda you're in, you still get battle music. Even Breath of the Wild with its downplayed soundtrack does it.
Yeah, there are games where, you know, we said before that you can have the 100 enemy room and it's kind of a slog. But you can take an identical combat mechanic, and you can take an identical game and an identical 100-man room, and one of them has a banging soundtrack overlaid on it that gets in my brain and gets the pulse going, and I will complain a lot less.
Yeah, like in the last video when we had the speed up section or whatever, and all the sound goes out because it's being sped up, I didn't like notice really, because all you're hearing is the sounds of combat, no actual, music or anything.
Just want to briefly point out the that piece of heart we got is really sneaky. It's legitimately almost hard to tell. You can even go back behind those string cars.
Yeah, it's probably an instance where looking at the mini-maps, it kind of suggests, hey, maybe there's something back here.
It's extremely video games.
But just to briefly go back to talking about this dungeon, unlike the Twilight Cathedral, this one is laid out a lot more like your typical Wind Waker kind of dungeon, where like you go into the left side of the dungeon and you get the dungeon item, and then you get a couple series of shortcuts that gets you back to the entrance, and then now you can go do the whole right side of the dungeon. So it's laid out. It's like, I don't like the aesthetics of it nearly as much as the Cathedral, but it is definitely laid out and plays a lot more like your traditional Zelda dungeon.
At the same time, it doesn't seem to me to feel like it's especially incongruous with its aesthetic. Like, the last place was like, hey, this is supposed to be a cathedral, and then, yeah, there's all these twisting passages and platforms and stuff. And here, we've got this industrial factory aesthetic, and obviously it's still extremely video games, and the shortcuts are what they are, but, like, just as a whole, this place doesn't scream, this doesn't look anything like the thing that it's pretending to be. IMO.
Yeah, I think that's the difference, because you have an expectation of what a cathedral is going to look like and the general shape of it, because, we see cathedrals in cities, you see them in culture, in whatever, and, tall, rectangular, cathedrals, probably going to have some basement or whatever, and I don't remember exactly what the cathedral in this game looks like or how it's laid out or whatever, but if it starts deviating from that too much, then you start saying, hey, this doesn't really seem like...
Yeah, I do not think the Pope would approve. That's the sticking point. All this other stuff, no, whatever. But the cathedrals are wrong. They're pointing in the wrong direction.
I still don't know what exactly this place produced or did, or, I mean, we got a train car, but what in the world is the rest of this? Because it still does feel very video game in its layout and design space. It doesn't feel very functional. But,
I mean, dungeons rarely are.
I suppose.
Like, I mean, even in Zelda, like, can you honestly name a single one that actually looks and feels like the place it ostensibly is?
Probably the best example would be the snow mansion in Twilight Princess.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like Twilight Princess, again, is probably the closest the series gets to getting that right.
Yeah, and that's fine. I was just thinking here, because you got, ostensibly, you have Earth. This is Earth. This is the ruins of humanity, basically. And it's just like, well, what was this place? It's not like Zelda where it's like, well, this is definitely a game. And the design of the levels is kind of...
Game architecture is a big problem. Especially if you want to have, like, puzzle areas, like, interesting and fun to navigate and in any way engaging. You kind of have to just make everything complete bullshit. Because otherwise, you get the open world stuff like, oh, it's a house, except there's only one way in, and it's just completely boring inside.
There was I was talking about this last week or something like that, in regards to Breath of the Wild, and one of the things that I really enjoyed about Breath of the Wild was its actual, like, town and house design. Because too often in games, it feels like this is a house, but no one actually lives here.
Oh yeah.
Where Breath of the Wild actually has, like, rooms and bedrooms and furniture and things like that all properly.
Yeah. Like, you can disappear miles up your own arse theorizing about this stuff, but, like, you can, all the same, I'm gonna do it. You get the sense, walking around Hyrule and Breath of the Wild, that, like, there was like, an architectural style that caught on with certain people, and they all ended up building their houses like this, and you can probably write, there probably exists somewhere in a Nintendo office, pages and pages and pages of lore saying, like, how the Zora style came out, how the Hylian style came out, how the Rito all built their shit.
It's not even just, it's just, it feels like people live here. And I think that's the biggest thing a lot of times. Do people actually feel like they live here? Or does this just feel like a game? RPGs are usually especially bad about it because you need houses in towns and things like that. But you're just gonna put whatever.
But if you really want to get pretentious, you can go the Jonathan Blow route and hire an actual consultant architect full-time to work with your designers and design literally every space in the game and tell everybody about its history and what all the materials are and why everything is its exact proportions and relations.
And yet I really liked how the Witness was designed, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I laugh and mock, but god damn, that guy, whoever the hell he was, got results.
Yeah. Witness, if nothing else, looks really nice.
Like, I don't think there is an example out there of a person who I personally dislike as much, and yet whose work I love as much as Jonathan Blow. So there's that.
So there is an extremely sneaky artifact in here. You can tell based on how I'm just desperately swimming around.
Yeah, this is...
What the fuck? That's a demerit.
So you can hear that from all the way at the top, but in order to get it, you have to swim all the way down, find the right tunnel, and then go into an unmarked open area above the water.
Metroid Prime, is this you? We don't even have scanning.
So it taunts you with its sound from a while away. You're in completely the wrong area. You have to go to a completely different area. Disregard what the minimap is telling you. Just take it on faith and go through water and swim down and left and right and up to find this thing.
It really, it's the swim up is the problem.
That's a paddling.